Good morning on this hazy day in Michigan. It's very damp out, and first of all, I would like to say that I haven't been really making a lot of videos, nor have I been as productive as I would like finishing up my commissioned bow project, simply because I've been struggling. I don't know what I have. I mean, I'm hoping it's just the flu, but my energy levels have been like down the drain. But on a brighter note, I have a Mollegabet. This is Shelton's bow that was backed with rawhide from a deer that I actually gathered, so it's a very personal couple strips of deer rawhide. When you're working with rawhide that you would buy from, say, a supplier like Mike at Pine Hollow Longbows, what you receive is a matched set of beautifully prepared rawhide strips. Very even. Thinned down to the point which makes them very easy to work with. When you're, say, taking a sheet of deer rawhide that you have prepared, or I have prepared, it's not necessarily, when you cut those strips, as finely tuned as, say, ones that were made from a commercial supplier like Pine Hollow Longbows. And so, it is, in some ways, a little more technical to actually bond them to your bow and get everything straight, because of course it does take 3 hands to hold everything, to stretch the hide as you're wrapping it, make sure that it's centered on the bow. I would be doing you a service also to say that after you wrap it, you are able to feel where the rawhide is, and you are able to shift it to correct it. So don't worry, you don't have to be perfect when you mummify the bow with that rawhide under there. If it has slipped a little bit because of uneven pressure of wrapping, you are able to feel, closing your eyes and using the senses of your fingertips, you are able to reconcile, that's our vocabulary word of the day, the direction of that rawhide as it's going down the bow. Now, the idea of perfection. Now, sometimes when I am making a bow that is rawhide backed, I do like to take sanding block, various grades of sandpaper, and eliminate any overlap from the sides. Then, using various grits of sandpaper, I will bevel it, and when it's finished, typically with the rawhide, because they are going off to customers who more than often use them for hunting, and you might get caught in the rain when you're hunting, I finish them with Helmsman's spar urethane to waterproof them and also seal the edges. And so, that's one route I take. Now, other routes I take don't include going for perfection. Because the deer rawhide is a natural material, I'm not always keen on, say, perfecting it. And so, on this one, for example, let me bring it closer, you can see, hopefully with my meager camera phone here, the different shades that you get. And I can attest, it's hard because you're not here, that there are no air bubbles and it's smooth and there's no wrinkles. It's a pretty good job. But you can see overlap as it goes here, and that's from when I marked it and cut it before I wetted it. It stretches out, and so this was actually on the deer hide when I marked it at this point. But I like that. I also like the somewhat uneven overlap here. This side's pretty even. On this side you see it overlapping a little bit more. I suppose my point is that we shouldn't always strive for perfection, because in a lot of ways these little bobbles in the overlap just add to the character of it, adds to the colors of our painting, which are primitive bows. So, here we go. Looking at it, it's not painted yet, not finished tillered, although it is tillered. What is our next step? Putting the string grooves in. Now, we all like to have nice, even string grooves. And so, in this video, I am going to turn it into a build-along, and I am going to string groovize it. I can make up all sorts of words here. Measuring the string grooves from the tip. highly precise, I shall use my thumb width. And what I'm going to do is simply put my thumb there, make a little divot. Now when you have a bow that's rawhide backed or sinew backed, I would suggest don't, when you're grinding it, pull away, because even though you bound it, you glued it to the back of the bow nicely, you don't want to give it any reason to pull up. So I always just work away from it, downwards, forget that. Got that one? Whoa, perfect thumb width. We work with precision here. On this side, a little divot, and I just did a little divot so I can see if that is straight, but I can still adjust it up or down the tip. And that looks pretty darn good. I'm going to move it down this way a little bit. Got it. Just because of the string, will go off at an angle. Obviously, you have to have your string grooves at an angle. You don't have to. I just contradicted myself, but I like to do that because it gives you a chance to think. In reality, I just contradicted myself. And so I'm going to make just a shallow groove. And I work with shallow just so I'm able to adjust it when I flip the bow over and look at its belly. And boom, 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 make a shallow groove here. Alright. And those two grooves are just deep enough to see, but they're shallow enough that I can adjust the angle of them. I use tied-on strings. My strings have a end that's tied on, and they also have what I call a slip loop. It's just like a noose. It tightens. And so what I've seen is these grooves don't need to be as steep as they are on a bow that uses two loops. But I still make them steep. I could get away with just making vertical, but I'm not going to. So now I've got my two little side loops, side grooves there, and I'm sure they're off a little bit. Let me put my Jorgensen on this side. Oh my goodness, they're actually straight. Oh, pardon me, still a sec. And so, I think, if I do it on this side first, will I have a better vantage point when I do this one? And the answer is yes. I'm right-handed, so I shall, and I can see this one is up towards the tip a little farther, so I'm going to adjust it. You have to keep your angle even. You don't want to like grind it and then, I'm exaggerating, keep it nice and even. And I don't do it all the way. And I can see this one is going down towards the bow a little bit too much, so I'm going to change my angle here to reconcile, I love that word, with this one. Before I get too ambitious, I'm going to study it. Let me take this off and show you what I have so far. Hopefully the miracle of my camera will work. I have had good luck making those even. Made my grooves sideways. And now I am left with that. And that is pretty good. I like that. So now I can carry it further. I'm still working on those. Now sometimes, you're going to have to envision this. I'll have the grooves coming, and instead of having that gap in there, on the Mollegabet bows, sometimes I will continue them and then rotate them so the groove actually curves and then runs into the tip a little bit. That's nice, but it could be tricky because as you work with this 3/16 inch round rasp, it kind of grinds its way. I can get away with that though because I'm going to make pin knocks on here. So if I'm like chowdering, technical word number 2, up here, doesn't matter. That's all going to be eliminated. However, I am just going to make standard string grooves. Carry on some thingamajiggers about thus far. I'm going to get into pin knocks here, so you hang on. That works for me. Nice and even. I've got a little gapperino down there, but you notice that's not finished. This is the fun part. This is the easy part. I'm going to take that out. I've got pins, holes and pins here, so when I'm clamping it down and working on it, I have it oriented so when I'm pushing on one side it doesn't rotate. Did I mention that I really like my shaving bench? Now this is the part, if you're tired, you can sit down. I simply straight down and then rotate it. Nicey, nicey, nicey. And there we go. Now, in many cases, with most kind of bows, you shall be ending right there. I mean, I could take my sandpaper, put this around here, and then clean it up. But I'm going to go a step further. I'm making pin knocks. If you've never seen a pin knock, close up and personal, you're in luck. Nicholson rasp. Working down so I'm not peeling that rawhide up. And I shall, after I finish this step, and because I want to maintain delicate sensibilities, I'm going to do that so I don't have my posterior in the camera view. Just digging down. Now when I get to sandpapering this with my sanding block, I will be working like this. I can get away with that because this is glued down well. Always. Going at an angle. Pin knocks are a beautiful thing because you don't need to wrestle the loop down the limb. You just pop it off the end, make it bigger, and then slide it back up to prepare yourself. I do like my pin knocks. Simply, I don't get it right. I don't get it right to the, the final. I'm going to do that with sanding, but I get close. You see it's circular and then it comes up a tad. It's angled. Step number next. Gosh, I'm tricky. Put that down there. And now there's no rawhide on here, so I can go nutty on this. I don't want to grind into this section, so you always have to maintain an angle on here. This is a good training because you want to maintain like this line parallel with the line of the bow. Pardon posterior view. I've been making several comments in other people's videos mentioning that I truly believe that wooden bow people are philosophers. And if I wasn't chattering away on this video, I would be thinking about things. Other things. Greater things. But I'm forcing myself to concentrate on this because I am really prone to going off on tangents. Getting close. Now I'm not going to continue grinding on this because I don't want to risk going into the rawhide so it's all flipperoony again. And I'm definitely going to do the tips before I paint the back of the bow simply because I don't want to like scrape up my paint with the jorgy. Next step. This is the fun step because you start seeing like the fruits of your labor. Man, I shouldn't be out of breath for doing that. I don't know what the heck is going on. I'll survive. Pretty sure. So no worries. Maybe next year I'll actually get a flu shot, because who knows if the flu next year is worse than this one. Can't stand to be like knocked out for a month because I've got customers that are waiting for me patiently, really patiently, so I give them credit. That's one reason I'm glad that I'm in the wooden bow world, is because 99.99999% of people in the wooden bows that I deal with are nice people, understanding, just generally nice to be around. And so I'm not getting a lot of angry people saying, "John, where's my bow?" They're like wishing me well, which thank you very much. I can't express how much I appreciate that. This is actually really easy, this part. And as long as I'm not like really pushing down, I'm using light pressure and speed, I'm not really afraid that like that rawhide's going to peel up, which it didn't. Nice, nice, nice. God, this is ridiculous. Okay, so we are at that stage. That is literally a pin knot. Now, one thing I do with my bows, if you actually are close enough to see it, you'll notice that this, as well as my paddle bow, is that they'll taper, but then they get bigger. You know, starting about here, it starts to get a little thicker. And I like to do that just because it really accentuates the pinny knockiness of my pin knocks. Next step. The finishing step. Almost finishing step. I am a rasp among rasps. Farrier's rasp, made in Italy, very high quality steel. You could buy a $20 Farrier's rasp, or you could buy a $60 Farrier's rasp. The difference isn't just how much money you want to spend, it's the quality of the steel. This thing has seen the grinding of many bows, and it's still sharp. But anyway, so and I'm making sure that I'm not tilting it, that's why I go like this. Nice rounded motion. And that does leave teeth marks, so I'm going to finish that up with sandpaper. I like it. And I don't see it so much on the Mollegabet as I do my paddle bows. But this parallel surface that I had that's going off, when I round it, then it kind of splays out. So then I'm just going to reconcile it. Did I mention I like sanding? And oh, I don't have my mask on, but I think I can get away with it. Here, other side. I'm working on my ambidexterity. Otherwise I have to do this. This is 120 grit, which is nice. I don't need to go down to 180. And then finally, let's see, I have 320. I'm actually just kind of holding it in my thumb and just going like just around stuff. Again, ambidexterity. I like it. In a video I made last, it was like, and never once do my hands leave my wrists, and then Grumpy said, "Isn't that a W.C. Fields quote?" It's like, wow, I didn't know that. But one of my other favorite W.C. Fields quotes is, "A woman drove me to drink and I didn't even have..." No, a woman drove me to drink and I didn't even bother to thank her. I thought that was kind of funny. And because the string is actually kind of pinching off here, I can round that bottom there and it doesn't matter. That's not the grippy part. I just like to round it. On my paddle bows, they are very rounded and then they transition right here. It's all about style, folks. All about style. What's interesting to me, because I am philosophizing, is that you can have almost non-existent tips, and by non-existent I mean real small, real delicate, unlike the heaviest of bows. And it all goes to leverage, is that there really isn't as much stress here as there is there. Okay. A pin knock. Rotate it slowly. Ooh, isn't that pretty? On a very short bow, one that's, say, juniper and then sinew back, or yew and sinew back, very short bow, when you're pulling it back, you're going to be able to get a higher, or a more severe, did I just hit the ground with that? A more severe bend angle. And so there is a possibility that that string is going to slide off of the pin knocks. And this is one reason, one of three that I can name on a very short sinew-backed West Coasty bow that has pin knocks, or knocks that don't have the grooves that will hold the string from coming off, that they're recurved. When you recurve them, you're allowing that string to stay on as it's drawn back to a very high string angle. It's just a matter of geometry. It also adds to the speed of the bow, and sometimes if you're sinew backing a thin paddle bow that's short, it will result in some extra kick here. You actually achieve recurves without steaming or shaping them into recurves, and again, that's just a matter of, say, leverage. As far as finishing the back here for painting, I would not hit my deer hide. I wanted to take some of there were some hairs left on it just from the raw hiding process. Didn't worry about taking them off before I backed it, because this is basically in a stretching frame, so it's nice and stretched. 320, I will sand this. Not to make it perfect, but just to give it a good smooth surface for painting. 320 grit here. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but yes, this is a board bow. And board bows and stave bows to me represent the same thing, bows, but they also represent two different things. On a stave-made bow, you're working with the artistry of the wood. You're kind of following its jogs and curves and creating something of beauty from something of beauty. With a board bow, they have to be imposing your will upon it, because it is a homogeneous substance. Typically you don't use knotty boards for bows. Typically they are, say, rift sawn or bias ringed, because when you're looking at this surface you can see the rings. In this case, this is that perfect piece of board that when I made it, it was following one growth ring. And so when you look at the belly, it looks like a growth ring bow, which is really slick. Question: when you're making a bow, actually when you're picking out the wood, what do I look for? Okay. When you're looking at the wide face of the board and you see growth rings, you can then look at this. Measure the angle of the growth rings. This is quarter sawn if the growth rings are along here. This is flat sawn if the growth rings are level. This is rift sawn if there's an angle, and that's what I prefer. Unless you can find that 1 in a million, or else you're rawhide backing it, then if the growth rings peter off, it doesn't matter so much. Between flat sawn and quarter sawn, uh-oh, the turkeys found me. You have the rift sawn, 45 degrees. I actually prefer 30 degrees, between 30 and 45, just because I have more surface area between the growth rings for holding them together. And also, when I'm making bows that have really distinct changes in width, I'm going to have less of a problem if it's a self bow with grain runoff, growth ring runoff, if the angles are a little lower. If they're quarter sawn, I mean, on this one, if this was a self bow quarter sawn wood, it could split so easy just off to the side in a drastic change. And with that, I shall end this video. I do believe that it's to the... Oh man, I still have another tip to make. Oh well. before I paint it. I'm going to finish the tip on my own. It'll look just like that one because I'll measure with my thumb. And then go in this house, make some breakfast, another cup of coffee, and begin painting this. Stylized Mollegabet. It's not a reproduction. I'm not going to say it is a Mollegabet because it doesn't look like the ones found in Mollegabet, Denmark. It is a Mollegabet style bow. Bendy part, tips. If I wanted, because it's rawhide backed, I could have certainly did it 60-40, 60% this, 40% this. But again, it's a Mollegabet bow, and I balance off the physics and the mechanics of the bow with reliability because it's a sales bow. And so, with that, my friends, I shall bid you adieu until the next time I make a video. Have a great day. And don't forget to feed your turkeys.